Good evening and welcome to the regular meeting of the City of Morgantown Board of Zoning Appeals. Please turn off all cell phones or other devices that may disrupt these proceedings. It is the duty of this board to consider requests for relief from the requirements of the city's zoning regulations, to consider conditional use permit requests, and to hear administrative appeals. The board conducts business in the following order. We will review, amend, and approve minutes of a previous meeting. We'll move to unfinished business, take up new business, and then conclude with announcements from staff. Each request is heard in the order that it appears on the agenda for each conditional use and variance request. The following is done. We will introduce the agenda item, and the planning division will present a staff report, which the applicant agent will be asked to present their justification for their request, which may include questions by members of the board. We will then open a public hearing to hear testimony in support of or in opposition to the request. Rules regarding public testimony are as follows. Anyone wishing to testify during the public hearing may do so once recognized by the chair, or may, in lieu of oral testimony, submit written testimony to the chair. All recognized speakers must approach the podium, state their name and address for the record, and speak clearly into the microphone. All comments must be addressed to the board, should be relevant to the application, and may not be of a personal nature or personal attacks. All speakers will be limited to 5 minutes. If members of the board have any questions of the speaker, that time will not be counted toward the total of 5 minutes. If there's a large number of speakers, including many who are part of groups or organizations, we may, to avoid repetitive comments, elect to ask for a representative to speak on behalf of the group or organization. Speakers are notified that relevant comments or comments of a personal nature or personal attacks may result in the speaker forfeiting his or her opportunity to participate in the public hearing. We may elect to recognize the applicant agent at the end of the public hearing to provide rebuttal or additional comments, which will be limited to an additional 5 minutes. If members of the board have any questions of the applicant agent, that time will not be counted toward the 5 minutes. After all testimony is heard, we will declare the public hearing closed and no further public comment will be permitted. Uncivil, unruly, and/or disruptive behavior at any time during this meeting is prohibited and will result in removal from this public meeting. State law requires the board to consider findings of fact for each conditional use and variance request or other case. The request cannot be granted unless a majority of the quorum present finds in the positive of all of the findings of fact. The board may elect to continue the hearing to another date if it needs additional information. Applicants and requesting parties will be notified in writing by the planning division of the board's findings and conclusions. Regardless of whether a request is approved or denied, decisions of the board can be appealed to the Circuit Court of Monongalia County within 30 days upon receipt of the written notification. Any work done relating to decisions rendered by this board during this 30-day period is at the sole financial risk of the applicant. Thank you for your consideration and respect for these proceedings and the opinions of all meeting participants. Call to order. Ms. Cook?
Here.
Mr. Misfeld?
Here.
Mr. Benison is present. We do have a quorum, so we can conduct the meeting. We have meeting minutes from previous regular meetings to consider. Any emendations, comments, remarks? You wanted to propose a change for September. So we're going to propose a change to the text for the September regular meeting, which is referenced on page 7 of the meeting packet. It concerns the motion to adjourn. So this is under other business for the good of the commission. Cook moved to adjourn, seconded by Cook. I guess point of order, we're going to just change the initial motion to adjourn from Cook to Bennett to me, if that's all right with you. Okay, we're going to just make that small change. So it'll now read Benison moved to adjourn, seconded by Cook.
Perfect.
under adjournment for September.
Okay.
Anything else? No. Nope. I move that we accept the all meeting minutes under consideration as included in the meeting packet for this evening
With the amendment.
with the amendment on page 7 of tonight's meeting packet. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. And how do we vote?
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Those meeting minutes as referenced in tonight's meeting packet are duly accepted. So we are going to move to old business now. This is referenced as CON 25 dash, before we get underway, should I just mention up front, do we need a motion to?
So regarding tabled cases, you wouldn't necessarily have to mention it as it's still tabled on here. For Con 25-099, you don't have to retable it. I'd maybe just acknowledge that it's still tabled until they meet their conditions.
Okay, so we just want to, for the first case, that CON 25-099, Ray Burns, 216 7th Street, that case is tabled until the applicant meets conditions as laid down in a previous meeting. Okay, so we'll revisit that case. Under new business, we have CON 25-109, Brendan DeCenzo, 52 Campus Drive. I'll just read the description. Request by Brandon DeCenzo for conditional use in compliance with section 1331.05 of the city's planning and zoning code regarding a neighborhood convenience store use, City Tax District 12 in the 3rd Ward, tax map 20, parcel 80 in the R3 multifamily residential district. Now this case also,
Yes, the applicant has requested that this conditional use be tabled until the regularly scheduled January meeting.
So I move that we table until the regularly scheduled January meeting.
right, and I will second that motion to table CON 25-109 in accordance with the applicant's wishes. How do we vote?
Aye.
Aye. So that particular case will be tabled until our next regular meeting in January. All right, so the next case under new business is CON 25-114 Cassie Adams, 356 Kingwood Street, request by Cassie Adams for conditional use in compliance with section 1331.05 of the city's planning and zoning code regarding a neighborhood convenience store use, City Tax District 10, 2nd Ward, tax map 36, parcel 170 in the R1A Single Family Residential District. And this is actually withdrawn as of December 10th, 2025. All right, so the third case under new business then is VAR 25-111, Zakaria Issa, 376 High Street, request by Zakaria Issa for variance relief from section 1369.08 of the city's planning and zoning code regarding lighting and design standards, City Tax District 11, 2nd Ward, tax map 26A, parcel 111 in the B4 General District, Business District.
Before getting into the staff report for VAR 25-111, wanted to introduce the new city planner real quick. This is Seth Cardwell. Will be taking in the position of the city planner. We'll be working more with the planning commission and stuff like that, but there will be some crossover and on some stuff regarding signage and things like that that we might get involved with the BZA and kind of getting input on that. He'll be involved in that as well. So I just wanted to get that introduction out of the way. Welcome to the city. Otherwise, for VAR 25-11, on the screen, there's the standard showing of the aerial of the site to get a better view on it. And then on the next one, as well as in the packet, it will show the designs for the sign. It will show the dimensions, length, width, where it will be located, on the building. The applicant is seeking variance regarding internal illumination standards for signs in the B4 district. The sign size and dimensions are permitted other than its illumination as previously mentioned. Refer to the sections of code below, as well as the submitted designs, which can be found in the packet. In summary, the applicant wishes to get variance regarding illuminating a sign at the property addressed at 376 High Street. Please see the attached application to review the findings of fact listed, as staff have had no comments or modifications. This attachment can be found below the conditions. Planning staff have no objections to the applicant's request for this variance relief. If the Board of Zoning Appeals grants the applicant variance relief in accordance with the city's planning and zoning code, the use shall be subject to the following condition, being our standard condition. If any other modifications or changes to the site would require, any other changes to the site will need to be compliant with the city's planning and zoning code, or that shall seek variance relief from the Board of Zoning Appeals or adjusted to be compliant. And then that'll conclude staff report.
Thank you very much. Do we have a representative for this case?
They said that they would be
Remote?
attending in person, but I do not believe I see them here, so.
And nothing, not remotely?
No, in-person physical attendance was communicated earlier today, so.
Oh, well,
Okay.
well, go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say, can we, move that one to the end? And give them, or is that,
Yeah, if you wish to wait till the end of the meeting.
just in case, I mean, the weather's not, I mean, it's not, it has warmed up, but
Mhm.
I don't know if that's a factor or not.
I don't see a reason why the board couldn't just wait to review it at the end after the other case.
Okay.
I would
good
just
time.
reference that that's what the board will be doing and then return to it after the next case.
Okay,
All right, so we're going to
change the
just
order.
change the order. So we are moving on to the original agenda item D, request for reasonable accommodation for Morgantown Sober Living, Inc. regarding 201 Waitman Street, City Tax District 9 in the First Ward, Tax Map 37, Parcel 256 in the R1A Single Family Residential District.
For the reasonable accommodation, on the screen, there will just be an aerial showing the site, getting familiar with the boundaries of it, the size of the lot, the structure already present on it. The applicant is seeking a reasonable accommodation regarding parking in the R1A Single Family Residential District. Staff recommendation can be found below with conditions. Refer to the sections of code below as well as the submitted designs. In summary, the applicant wishes to get approval for a reasonable accommodation regarding parking standards at the property addressed at 201 Waitman Street. Under the Federal Fair Housing Act, the city must provide reasonable accommodations and rules, policies, and practices when necessary to afford equal opportunity to people with handicap, as defined by FHA and ADA, to use and enjoy a dwelling. The request accommodation must be granted if it is 1, reasonable, 2, necessary, and 3, directly linked to enabling equal housing opportunity. However, an accommodation is not required if it would either impose due financial or administrative burdens or fundamentally alter the nature of the zoning regulation. I will read some of the bulleted points, 1 through 20, from there, just to give some points. Otherwise, the rest of it can be found in the packet. A request is reasonable if it does not impose an undue financial and administrative burden or require a fundamental alteration to the nature of the program. A request fundamentally alters a zoning program only if it is essential to the zoning district or regulation. If a city routinely waives the rules upon request, it will generally not be essential to the zoning regulation. The board finds that this request would not permit an incompatible use because the proposed group recovery home is a permitted use in all zoning districts. The board finds that the applicant establishes that the accommodation will not fundamentally alter parking in the district because the applicant reports that most residents do not have private transportation because existing laws allow 3 on-street parking passes for the dwelling, and because other dwellings within this district have not been required to construct off-street parking required by the zoning code, showing that this off-street parking requirement is routinely waived. The board finds that the accommodation is necessary because the applicant shows that the construction of off-street parking spaces is not physically possible at the property with the existing dwelling in place. Without the accommodation, the zoning regulation would prohibit use of the property for housing of any type. Based on these findings, the board concludes that the requested accommodation to waive off-street parking requirements is both reasonable, necessary, and directly linked to enabling equal housing opportunity. And then that'll conclude staff report.
Thank you. Do you have any questions about any of those points?
No.
All right, do we have a representative for this case?
Actually, I have a question for Sailor. What is the zone, the rest of the zoning in that district?
It's mostly the same, R1, I believe R1A.
Yep.
Is the, yep, yeah, mostly that. I think there's a couple little splotches of like B, I believe B1 or B2, but it's majority just residential R1 or R1A.
And for off-street parking, what's the requirement?
For off-street parking, it is 3.
3?
3 meaning
3 off-street spaces.
2 regular and 1 guest?
If you're talking about on-street parking, well,
Yes.
it is 2 regular, 1 guest for on-street. I thought the question was off-street.
Well, yeah, I was asking that, so.
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay.
Three
Yep, it would be
off-street.
3 off-street spaces.
Are required.
Yep.
Okay. Go ahead, that was the only question I had, sorry.
Hi, thank you. I'm Dan McCauley, Director of Operations for MSL Incorporated, 206 Spruce Street here in Morgantown. Yeah, just like he said, we're looking just for a reasonable accommodation so that we can use this for a recovery residence. And I think we have done our due diligence this time in looking into the actual requirements for utilizing Fair Housing Act and American with Disabilities Act to support our claim. Really, there'll be 1 car there all the time in, as far as people that live there that'll have access to a car. There will be, the occasional drop-in by me or another employee or something during the daytime, during business hours, to just, check in and make sure that they've got the support that they want. But just like any of our other recovery residences in town and, abroad, we don't have any on-site parking for the participants themselves. And 99% of the time, they don't have a vehicle. And when they do, they find a spot downtown. We've got a pretty good relationship with a couple of the lots where they can rent regular spaces to leave their cars.
Right.
So we do the same thing here. We don't want to create any undue burden on the neighbors or the neighborhood.
So you're envisioning, in terms of the parking and the vehicular activity associated with this property, it's more in support of the operations of the facility rather than vehicles for residents.
Correct. We'd have our maintenance guy that needs to come by sometimes, just probably about as often as you would at any other residential home, slash our coaches that like to stop in and make sure that everything's going well.
Right.
Okay, I have a
Yeah.
question.
Do you have any questions?
And how many residents are there, like?
It'll be 8 in total.
And so were you saying that, so there's like a house, I don't know, a manager or?
Yeah, he's a participant, but he does some extra duties around the place to make sure that, and he doesn't have to pay the program fees because of it. So he does the drug screens to make sure that everybody's in by curfew.
Okay.
So a senior resident.
And that's who the normal daily car would
Right.
be? Okay. And are they available to the other residents for rides, that sort of thing?
Yeah, I mean, you could be. Very often, like, we try to make sure that we're within walking distance of job opportunities, of 12-step meetings, and on a bus line, and that meets
Right.
all of these
And there is a
requirements.
bus line, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Mountain Line goes right through there. Any other questions?
No, I don't have a question.
Okay. Where's that line? We may have other questions for you, but not
Okay.
at this time.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Okay.
Public meeting.
Do we want to, okay, we'll just open. We're going to go ahead and open the public hearing for this case. It's actually more of a request for reasonable accommodation. But this is, again, for Morgantown Sober Living at 201 Waitman Street. We are now opening the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak in support or opposition to this case, please do so now. I'm surprised. Seeing no one, we're going to close the public hearing. Is there any correspondence?
Nope, I have not received any correspondence.
There was earlier on, but no
Yeah, in
additional
regards
correspondence.
to the reasonable accommodation, I've not received any phone calls or emails that I've seen.
Well,
Do you have anything you want to?
I would just like to reference point 4 on, it's not really, on page, it's not really paginated. Well, toward the end of the meeting packet, a request is reasonable if it does not impose an undue financial or an administrative burden, certainly not on the city, or require a fundamental alteration in the nature of the program. In terms of the parking, it's, I mean, it's still,
Could put
given,
another word on it.
given the density of the neighborhood, again, it does present potential issues with
Yeah,
regard
it
to,
does.
it does. On the other hand, what's being requested in terms of the accommodation, that does not rise to the level of demanding a fundamental alteration in the nature of the zoning. It doesn't. It's kind of, and it's not as if what's being proposed, you know, the adjacent properties, there are similar characteristics with regard to
Right, so this
the
must be a.
usual usable space as it relates to providing parking for
Yeah. So the
single
requirements
family.
are the same, so this must be a routine request for this area, right? Because nobody has off-street parking.
Yeah, referenced on, I believe it was number
But is that true? That's
12. Yeah, if you look at houses in that area, there are a couple that do have driveways, but some of them obviously don't, but ones that do are either already limited or like can only fit one vehicle, which wouldn't be permitted anyway.
But no one's been forced to build off-street parking in South Park, probably.
Yeah, at least since my time here, I can't think of any.
Because it's not feasible to do so.
Right.
Given the lot configuration.
I mean, I think there certainly is, because there's gonna be more people living there than a typical single-family home. But they're gonna have free passes, so is there a risk that there's gonna be more cars on the street? Yeah, but if they don't have a pass, they'll get ticketed. So there's already a process for that.
That's true.
But in any case, it does impact a protected group. And so there's, you know, heightened scrutiny. And the fact that this is something that it really is routinely granted for this area. I mean, I'm inclined to just grant it, grant the variance.
Have you had to,
No, it's a reasonable accommodation, not a variance. Explicitly, this will not be a variance. This is just a reasonable accommodation. So approved or denying a reasonable accommodation, yeah, yep, just to say that for the record.
To clarify.
Yep.
have you
So how is that recorded?
It'll be voted on just as accepting or denying the reasonable accommodation. And then an action letter will be produced and sent out, based on the 20 stages on it. Yep, thank you, Ricky. On point 20, staff is directed to record this accommodation with the city records of the property and is consider the accommodation when reviewing applications for permits or other enforcement of laws. So that'll be how it is recorded after this is either approved or denied.
Okay.
So I guess if you make a request this way rather than applying for a variance, so then can you avoid all the other requirements for requesting a variance, like informing the people in the neighborhood of the surrounding area, giving notice of the hearing, so forth?
Not entirely.
Yeah, legally,
Sure,
is
how
this
that would go.
like an appeal of the initial decision?
I don't think so, no. This is a separate
Yeah, I believe-
application.
Yes, I believe it is. Yeah, it is a separate process.
Okay. And there's no comments from staff or?
Our kind of
Just a
comments and
standard
recommendation
condition.
was that kind of 1 through 20.
Okay, so
At the end, which
whose
is-
findings, were these their findings of fact, or is this something?
This was in like kind of combination based
Okay.
on their.
Yeah, who prepared that?
And
Was that-
you can correct me if I'm wrong, there was a
Their-
reasonable accommodation request sent in to us, and then we worked to put together, combining that into the reasonable accommodation kind of report, which was that document.
So that separate PDF, that was by staff?
Yes, that was by staff.
Yeah.
Yep, the one that was that 14-page-ish document.
So then, do we still need, if this isn't a variance, do we still need to make findings of fact? Whereas,
To the best of my knowledge, it's just approved or denied on finding that it's reasonable, necessary, and linked to enabling equal housing opportunity.
okay, well, I guess then I would move to approve the request for reasonable accommodation, or accommodation.
I'll second.
Based on the points in the packet would be
Yes,
the.
based on the points in the packet.
Yep.
All right, so we have a motion.
On this vote.
Any other discussion? No? All right, so we have a motion by Mr. Misfelt to grant the requested accommodation for Mountaineers Sober Living at 201 Waitman Street. We have a second by Ms. Cook. And this is not subject to making a motion with regard to findings of
It's
fact.
just accepting or denying.
We are accepting or denying, so an aye vote is to accept or grant the accommodation, nay is to deny the accommodation. How do we vote?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. So, this this still can be appealed.
I don't know if
believe
they
so.
can, well, maybe.
Can we speak to that?
We have to check with legal counsel, but we'll work properly when the notice goes out.
Okay.
Presumably.
Well, you'll receive a written notification from planning, 7 to 10 business days, confirming the granting of your requested accommodation. Should we caution any financial work done during a 30-day period? No?
I'm not.
You'll receive written notification from planning. We'll just leave it at that.
I appreciate your work.
Thank you very much, and good luck with your endeavor. All right, so we are now moving to, thank you very much. We're going to move to a new business agenda item. This is VAR 25-111, Zakaria Issa, 376 High Street, request by Zakaria Issa for variance relief from section 1369.08 of the city's planning and zoning code regarding lighting and design standards. City Tax District 11, Second Ward, Tax Map 26A, Parcel 111 in the B4 General Business District.
For this variance request, here's a aerial showing where the site is located, as previously mentioned. Before this was moved, kind of showing where it's located on High Street. The second slide, as well as found in the packet, is a visual showing the design, the length, the size, kind of where it's going to be located and material for the sign and reference. The applicant is seeking a variance regarding internal illumination standards for signs in a B4 district. Sign size and dimensions are permitted. The only issue is their internal illumination. Refer to sections of code below in the packet. In summary, the applicant wishes to get a variance regarding illuminating a sign at the property address 376 High Street. See the attached application to review the findings of fact listed. Staff have had no comments or modifications. The attachment can be found below. said conditions. Planning staff also have no objections to the request for variance relief, and if the Board of Zoning Appeals grants the variance, the one standard condition will apply, to where if any changes are to be made that will make it non-compliant, they'll have to either make it compliant or seek variance relief from the Board of Zoning Appeals. And then that'll conclude staff report.
Thank you very much. Do we have a representative for this case? VAR 25-111. Good evening.
Did you draw the short stick?
Your turn.
Okay.
So would you please just state your name and address?
Zakaria Isa,
And
So-
address?
And your,
regarding
either the business address or your home address.
79 Barrington Court in Bridgeport.
All right?
Okay. So, I'm not aware of the issue with the signage itself. So is it not in compliance of what city code is that?
So
It's the lighting.
The lighting?
the illumination standard.
Okay.
Otherwise, the size and other parameters are all compliant.
So it's just the illumination?
Yep, internal illumination just isn't permitted downtown by right.
Okay.
Yep.
So since this is a franchise, we had to go in with them as they asked us to do so. I could talk to the actual franchise and see if we could do something about that. If you could give us enough time to do that, that would be,
Well, I mean, that's.
This is just a
one
neon,
option.
this is a neon.
I mean, if it's just the
No.
laminations, it's not a big
The
issue.
LED kind of illumination,
Yeah.
the lighting for
And
it.
don't we have several other that are lighted this way downtown?
Right.
Internal? No.
That, yeah, that
It's
could be a part of
very
the
similar.
logic of maybe.
And actually, this, for the facade, it's kind of on the small side
Yeah.
in
and
terms
it
of
fits the-
dimensionally.
Usually they want to
It's-
expand it, and this one you
Right.
said fits everything except the illumination, so.
Correct.
Right. It's,
Is it on a timer?
Good
Or is it
question.
on 24 hours?
Is it on timer, 24 hours, it works? Yeah, so
it is on a timer?
it's on timer, yeah.
So then, close the business and then an hour later, the illumination is off, say. It's not 24 hours.
No, we could do it either way,
Oh, so you can, all right.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
How many streets are internally illuminated on High Street, do you
How
know?
many signs?
Yeah.
There's at least like 4 or 3 I can think of, but.
Yeah.
Right down the road, Roots Natural Kitchen was approved for internal illumination variance
The bank.
within time, yeah.
And the side streets too. It's not just High, right?
But most-
Yeah,
There are-
it would be the whole downtown, yeah.
Right.
Not just being on the street would change if it would be permitted or not for it. Yep.
Has the board put a condition on timers or time in the
Not
past?
to my
Not-
knowledge.
not to my knowledge.
It could be a condition added if you guys would want to, but otherwise, not to my knowledge.
I think when we ask about the nature of the illumination, we're trying to get at, is this going to be, are we talking nighttime out, 24/7 nighttime hours, or is
Because
it?
people do live on High Street too, you know, they have windows. I don't necessarily want to see a sign at 3 AM.
True.
so yeah, we could have it shut off as we close.
An hour after close.
Yeah. That way it doesn't,
Yeah.
Because in terms of identifying your location as the taco spot, it's not as if it's in complete darkness.
yeah.
It's still visible.
Very illuminated down there.
It's the straight line, yeah.
So, yeah, that's not so you'd be open to that?
Yeah,
You know, just an hour after close,
Yeah.
it times itself off.
yes, we are.
And your request, you're not making an unusual request. You're not. All right, any other questions?
No.
Okay. We may have other questions for you, but we're all set. Thank you for your presentation. We're going to go ahead and open public hearing for this case, VAR 25-111. Anyone wishing to speak in support of or in opposition to this case, please do so now. Seeing no one, we're going to close the public hearing. Anything further to add, Mr. Thompson? And no correspondence on this?
No. I had a phone call, but they were fine. They didn't have any written correspondence, and they were just confused. So, no correspondence for or against.
All right. So,
I'm going to move to accept the findings of fact as stated in the packet.
Second.
yep, so we have a motion to accept the findings of fact for VAR 25-111 with a motion by Ms. Cook, seconded by Mr. Misfelt. They're very straightforward. So how do we vote?
Aye.
Aye.
So we've accepted the findings of fact in the affirmative for VAR 25-111.
Okay, go ahead. You want to do it?
Yeah, I'll move to grant the requested variance with regard to the lighting for this case, VAR 25. There is one condition. It's the standard
Yeah.
planning condition. So we have a motion to grant the variance,
I'll second.
and we have a second by Ms. Cook. How do we
What
vote?
about, do we want to put the timing condition?
Well,
No.
No? All right.
we can, but I don't think
Do you think we need
that's
it?
necessary.
No, but, I mean, I don't think it would be a bad policy, because people do live on the street.
Right.
You know.
All right.
I don't think it would be a bad
Let's
policy in
back
the
up.
future, but.
Okay, back up.
Okay, so
I'm good.
we'll amend that motion. I move to grant the requested variance for VAR 25-111, subject to the standard condition, which is referenced in the meeting packet. In addition, we're going to ask that the applicant put the illuminated signage on a timer set to time out the illumination an hour after the business closes. There may be, I don't know what your operating hours are, but we'll just go with your signage illumination will time out. It'll be set to time out 1 hour after close. Do we have a second for that
Second.
amended motion?
Second.
Okay. So we have a motion to grant the variance for VAR 25-111, subject to the two conditions, seconded by Ms. Cook. How do we vote?
Aye.
Aye. So we've granted your variance
With the conditions.
with the conditions that we just specified. You will receive written notification from planning 7 to 10 business days. But please keep in mind the determination that we just rendered can be appealed to the Circuit Court of Montague County, and any work that you do in that 30-day appeals window, you do at your sole financial risk. But thank you for coming down this evening, and good luck. It's a good looking sign. Well done. Thank you. All right, so,
Otherwise,
Good.
that's it.
good. All right.
Otherwise, Merry Christmas, right?
Well, we can say it back.
Merry Christmas. All right, so I move to, with no further announcements, I make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
And we have a motion to adjourn, seconded by Ms. Cook. How do we vote?
Aye.
We are so adjourned.